In the last video, we saw how we can get the values from the input fields based on the date, on the IDs, and store them inside variables. Here we're going to start with the validations. The validations that we're going to perform are, first, we're going to check that the input fields are not empty, and also we're going to make sure that the input values match some certain criteria. And we're going to do that using some if conditional statements. And we should know that we are just creating a simple custom validations that we can use. Now, what we need to start with here is we start with the first name. So we check if the first name is empty, then we set the Boolean value to false. So we say if first name is equal to empty, then what we do is we set the Boolean value to false. So if the first name is empty, we set the Boolean value to false. Then the next thing we need to do is we need to add error message to display to the user, and we can do that using an element, adding either an ID or a class. But in this case, we are going to add an ID to the element, but the element is not yet created. So what we're going to do is we just get the ID of the element, give it a name. We give it a name. So in this case, we can call it, say, error first, which signifies for first error for first name, or we can give it error first name, then dot HTML. If we want to add another element to an existing element, or a text to an existing element, in JQuery we use the HTML to add those elements. So in this case, we're going to add the message which says first name cannot be blank, or first name cannot be empty. First name cannot be empty. Now this occurs when the input field for first name is empty. Otherwise, or else, we use an else statement. We set the error to false. We set it to empty. So we just copy and we paste. Then we remove this message. We just leave it as empty. So what this is saying is, if the first name is empty, we set the Boolean value to false. Then we get the ID of the element which we want to hold the error messages. Then we add this error message which says first name cannot be empty. As I said, we've not created the element with this ID. We'll create it later. Then if the input field is not empty, then we set the element with the HTML to empty. So what this part means is the Boolean value is set to true. So this is for the first name. The next thing we need to do, we do the same for the last name. We can just copy and we paste. Then we change this to last name. It works the same way. Then we can call this error last name. We say last name cannot be empty. So error last name. So in this case, last name cannot be empty. So we've checked for the first name and the last name to make sure that they are not empty. We do the same for the email and the password. So for the email, we say if email is equal to empty, then we set the valid to false. We set the value to false. Then we add the error message, error email, which we are going to create later, .html. In this case, we're going to say email field cannot be empty, else we set it to empty without a message, error email .html, and we set it to empty. So this is it for checking that the email field is not empty. Then also the last thing we need to do, we need to check for the password. If password is equal to empty, then what we do is we also set the valid equals to false, then add the error message, get inside the element with ID of error password, we use that using the HTML. I will say password field cannot be empty, otherwise we set that element to empty. So we can just copy this, we paste, and we remove this message, error message. Now we've been able to do the custom validation to check that the input fields are not empty. Now in the next video, we're going to add the element, give them the ID, then add a CSS style of color red. We'll do that in the next video.